Okay, an update on Buster. This is my wife's 83 model Silverado, short bed, 4-wheel drive. It has the stock factory original 305 in it. Got the 700 R4 transmission. I'm not sure what transfer case it has. I bought this back in September of 2020, I believe. Maybe 2019. To be honest, can't remember. Got it running, drove it for a while. This past summer, we was going to a small little car show over in Electra, Texas, and the gauges weren't working, so it overheated on me. I didn't know it. Radiator was leaking. It overheated and blew head gasket. Locked the poor little 305 up. No biggie. I was going to LS swap it anyway. I just wasn't going to do it quite so quickly, but not a big deal. We was always planning on LS swapping this truck to begin with. A few things we done to it. Well, really, the only thing other than getting it running is I changed the axles. It had the 10 bolts in the rear, and I'm not sure exactly what front end was under it. I don't remember. It's been a year or so since I changed them. But anyway, they had like 308 gears or something like that. I can't remember for sure. Now it has a set of, it has a 12 bolt rear differential and Dana 44 front diff. It has 373 gears front and rear. So even with the little 305 in it, she really gets down pretty good in the mud and stuff. It's a pretty fun little truck to drive. So with a 300-ish plus horsepower engine, and it ought to really get down. This is the 5.3 that we're going to put in it. This is Monday. My wife's birthday is next Monday. I want to have it running and give it back to her on Monday. So that's the plan. So stay tuned. 5-day LS swap C10 coming up. So let's get started. What we're going to do is start by pulling the engine. We hadn't even started on it, and I'm already at about 3:30 or 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon. So I want this out and running and driving by 5 o'clock Friday afternoon. So stick with me. Let's see how it goes. We're going to start the teardown on this. Most of you know how to do a teardown, I'm sure. If you don't, this is probably not the video to watch because I don't have a way to mount the camera to where you can do a time lapse or anything like that on it. So maybe we'll make a video or something like that later. But right now, I'm just going to probably go periodically as I take stuff apart and explain what I've done. So where we're going to start, we're going to take the air cleaner and carburetor off, take the radiator and the fan shroud and all that out of it, and start there. We'll work our way down. We'll take the motor mounts loose, the exhaust loose. Anyway, that's where we'll start. We'll get all that stuff done, and we'll come back to you. So let's get started. So I put it on the lift because I got to take the 2 bolts out of the shroud up here. And I didn't feel like laying under it. Why lay under it when you got a lift? The exhaust on is pretty janky. I do have new exhaust for it, so I think I'll just go ahead and cut the exhaust completely out of it. I didn't realize we had, looks like a converter leak. Converter seal is leaking, but that's not a big deal because when we take the, take the engine out, we can pull the converter out, put a new seal in it, stick the converter back in it. Other than that, I think the transmission shifted good and everything, so it must not be a major leak. Mostly going to leave everything under here like it is, except for, we'll put a fuel pump in it, and I don't know how I'm going to run the exhaust quite yet. This side is easy, this side not so much, so I'm going to probably do this side first and then try to mirror it over here. See how it works. May not be able to mirror it, so really don't matter. As long as it comes out close to the same length and put the mufflers in about the same area, that whoever did this exhaust pretty Pretty janky job. This that's the factory Y pipe that it's capped off, and I don't know why it's got this goofy bend in it right here. So I think they just kind of scabbed what they could together, made it work. Well, that might be factory bend. I don't know. That could possibly be a factory bend. I really don't know why it's like that. And then they got these cheap little aftermarket converters that really aren't doing anything. And this is an 83, so it don't have to have converters on it. At least not in the state of Texas, it doesn't. 84 is the first year they have to have catalytic converters on them. So the mufflers are actually in pretty good shape, but I got some knockoff flows we're going to put on it, so it'll look better. It'll sound better. Anyway, that's where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and start chopping all this stuff off. Take these bolts out. Since I'm down here, I'll probably go ahead and take the converter bolts and the bottom bell housing bolts, motor mount bolts, all that stuff, since I'm already down here, to where when I go back up top, all I've got to do is do all the top stuff and get it out. So there's the exhaust all cut off. Made plenty of room in there. I'm not sure what that little brace right there is for, but I don't think I need it. So I'll probably just cut it off too. I don't know what I would need it for. Maybe the factory stuff, factory exhaust or something bolted to it. But I don't need it, so it's gone. But I normally like to drain these engines when I take them out, any old engine. I like to drain the oil out of them. That way, when I put them on a stand and take them apart or whatever, I don't have to worry about them dripping, leaking oil, and making a big mess. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Ooh, look at that. Molasses. This thing looks like it don't have any oil in it. So thick and nasty. That's going to take a minute. It's cold today. Anyway, I normally try to drain those so it's not so much of a mess when I go put them on a stand and take them out. This one, it's a 305. I probably won't even take it apart. Probably just scrap it. I mean, we might keep the oil pan, little shit like that, but I doubt it. Probably scrap the whole thing. Anyway, we'll get back to it. Yeah, I'll be with you in a minute. Here's another interesting little deal. This one actually has a knock sensor on it. 83. I don't know what year they started that. I think 81 or 2, maybe 83. I'm not real sure. But they still had a carburetor on them, but they had a computer-controlled ignition on them. You set the distributor to whatever you're supposed to at top dead center. I think it's like 10 degrees. I'd have to look. It's been too many years, but it might be less than that. It might be more like 6 degrees or something like that. Anyway, you set the initial at top dead center or whatever it calls for in the book, and then the computer actually controls it from there. And it still has springs and weights to help with the advance. It still has a vacuum advance, but if that PCM, well, it's not really a PCM, it's an ECU. If the old ECU doesn't have power to it, this thing won't start. And whenever I started working on this truck, I would run into that. It wouldn't start, wouldn't get fire, and I looked for a broken wire and stuff, and it had a lot of rat damage. A lot of this wiring up in here for the fuel tanks, it's too dark for you to see, but anyway, a lot of that wiring up there in the fuel tank area and stuff has all been chewed up. Headlights, a bunch of that stuff was all chewed up, so I had to rewire some of it. But anyway, that's pretty neat if you guys have never worked on something around this year model. That's when GM was first starting to put their electronic ignitions, the computer-controlled ignitions in these cars and trucks. And this one here, I just unplugged it, but that's the knock sensor for it. They only had it on one side. Newer ones will have it on both sides, like all your TBIs will have it on both sides. Well, no, not all of them. Some of them will have it on both sides. And this one, it doesn't have EFI, it just has knock. It has a knock, so it can retard the timing and stuff. But 86 or somewhere around there, they put an O2 sensor in them. And then, of course, 87 and up all had O2 sensors in them. And it would have had just a single O2 sensor on the driver's side. This one's a little bit too old for an O2 sensor. Anyway, it's just a pretty neat little deal. I don't believe it has an O2 sensor anyway. Yeah, this was just dirt in the mouth. This was just a little bit too old to have an O2 sensor, but I think 85 or 6, I'm pretty sure 86, they started putting O2 sensors in them, even though they still had a carburetor on. And 87 and up, all of them have O2 sensors in them, even the big blocks and all. Anyway, just something neat I thought you guys would like to know about. So I did drain the oil on this, and it didn't even have a half a quart in it, so that is actually probably what locked the engine up. We thought that it just overheated and blew head gasket and locked it up, but it appears now that it ran out of oil. We drove it only maybe I guess about 30 miles. Yeah, somewhere around 30 or 40 miles after the oil change. So this thing was using quite a bit of oil. It used 5 quarts in 30 miles or 40 miles, 50 at the most. So I never even thought to check the oil in it after it had seized the engine, but it's really seized. I don't know. I only got one converter bolt out of it, and I don't think I'm going to be able to turn this back and forth to get it out. I'm probably going to have to pull the engine with the converter on it, which really bites, because that is going to make one heck of a mess. But you know, it is what it is. I guess we'll get started on doing that, but I'll go ahead and get the bell housing bolts and motor mount bolts and all that out of it, and hope for the best. Hopefully this thing isn't going to eat up too much time getting that converter out. I do have another 700R4 converter somewhere. I don't even know where, but anyway, I got another one, so if I have too hard a time, I don't care. I'll bend the flex plate or whatever I got to do to get it off. It really wouldn't be that hard, but really don't want to pull this out with the converter attached to the flex plate. That's going to make one heck of a mess. We'll keep you posted. Let's keep going. All right, the old pipe wrench on the crankshaft pulley for a win, man. I got this thing broke free. For whatever reason, it'll only turn backwards, but who cares? Got it turning backwards, and got the 2 of the bolts out. I'm working on the last one. I got it ready to pull out. So good job. I'm glad that worked out. I really was worried there for a second, but the old pipe wrench on the crankshaft worked pretty good. And it is tight, boy. It is very tight. But anyway, worked pretty good. So last converter bolt fixing to be out. We'll go ahead and take the starter off, because I'm afraid that it might actually hang up in that area right there. I don't know if you can see with all the dirt. Tell that's actually a starter hanging there. But I'll probably go ahead and take it off, just because I'm afraid it's going to hit on that bump stop there and hang up when we try to pull it out. And, especially because I can't get up in there. I can't get the exhaust bolts loose on this side. I've already tried it. I cut the pipe as short as I could get it. You can see where I cut it right there in that bottom area there. Let's see, right there. We cut it right there, and hopefully that'll clear. I don't know. We'll see. I really I don't want to have to take a torch to the bolts or anything like that, just because I don't want to burn up any wires. I don't care about the bolt swords and manifold. I just want it out. And these manifolds are lying across wrecking yards, scattered everywhere. You can buy for $2 or less. Most of the time they give them to you, so they aren't worth anything, even in scrap. So I don't care about them, but I just can't really get to them. So anyway, we're going to keep barreling on and keep on going. Okay, starters off. Was able to cut this. Let's see, cut this pipe off shorter. Got the bell housing bolts all off. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that from here. Kind of. Got the bell housing bolts all off. All that's all done. So all that's left under here, I believe, yeah, all that should be, oh yeah, I got motor mount bolts loose also. So all that's left under here is to strap up the transmission so it doesn't fall when we pull the engine out, and try to make that stay in place. So we'll do that now. So ratchet straps are our friend, right? So whenever you strap a transmission up like this, when you put it like over the frame or through the frame or however you got to do it, like on pickups, it's usually pretty easy. Just slide it over the frame and hook it to the bottom or whatever. This one I kind of got hooked to itself, and it's pulling up on the transmission there and over there. So it ought to hold it pretty tight, and I can even ratchet up more and pick up the transmission slightly. Can't really pick it up too much with the strap. If I need it up more, I'll jack it up and then tighten the strap. But anyway, my point is when you go over the frame or wherever, just make sure you're not going to pinch something or catch something that has to be removed. Then you have to take your strap loose, or you can even break something. You don't want to catch a wiring harness because you could pinch wires in there and break one of them or something like that. So just be careful when you do that. But anyway, this is how we do it. Straps are really great for something like this, especially if we're going to have it on the lift and have it up and down too many times. So a lot of times when you're doing this on the ground, you know, you can stick like a floor jack or transmission jack or something under it to hold it up while you pull the engine out so that it'll support the transmission. But if you have to move that vehicle, then, you know, your jack, you have to find a way to wire it up or whatever. So we use bungee, not bungee straps, but ratchet straps. They work a lot better, and it works really well for us. Just a quick tip there. Anyway, let's get moving on. Got everything under here done as far as I know, so let's go up top. Anyway, now we're back to taking all the stuff up here off. I'll go ahead and start with the shroud. It's all undone. I just need to pull it out. We'll put the motor lift plate in it and pull the plug wires because they wrap around all kinds of stupid shit. And, oh, excuse my language. And we'll get all this stuff all cleaned out of here. One of the easiest ways to do these, to remove these with the harness, instead of having to go and find all the little places that because some of these trucks are a nightmare. This one isn't too bad, but some of these things are a nightmare to find all the little wires, where they go and all this and that. I unplug it right there. There's a 3/8 headed bolt in the center of that. I think it's 1/4-inch bolt, I don't know, but it's got a 3/8 head on it. You stick a little socket in the center of that plug right there, unbolt the 3/8 head, that whole thing unplugs. Then the tail light harness is on the outside there. You take the tail light harness out, lay it over, headlight harness is next, lay it over, and then the entire engine harness and all that will lay over on the engine. So it's the easiest way to do it. We'll just take them apart right there. And whenever I do the swap harness, we'll run it through the firewall where the stock computer ran through, and I'll tie into that part of the harness because it also feeds the cab. That harness there, it doesn't only run the engine, it feeds the cab. So all those red wires that are in that loop right there, they all run over and go either to the starter, the alternator, or the battery on the factory harness. And we're going to have to relocate some of those and move them around. There's a junction block right up there. Let's see. There it is. There's a junction block right there. That is positive. That is direct battery positive, and a lot of those go to that. But then some of them, see that wire runs over, goes to the blower motor. And then if you can see in here, there's some red wires that run down. Those are all going to this harness right here, comes over to the alternator. Some of these wires run over to the battery from the factory. Some of them run down back of the engine, run over to the starter. So all that stuff is going to be reused, but it is going to be relocated. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a factory battery tray. A lot of times we'll use a diesel battery tray on this side, and put the battery over here like the LS engine normally would have came with, so we can use factory LS battery cables. And then a lot of times we'll just take this tray out and either, what I'm going to do with this one, because I don't have a diesel battery tray and they are in back order and I won't have one for weeks, what I'm going to do is take a stock tray, chop the bottom off, flip it around, weld it back together so it'll fit over here. And I'll show you guys how to do that. But that's how we do it. Right now I'm going to leave that battery tray where it's at. I have another battery tray to put on the other side, but I'm going to leave that battery tray where it's at because I'm going to use the stock air box off of the 2005 Tahoe in that place. And it'll set with just a little bit of modification, that factory airbox will set in that location and work great, work just fine. This thing doesn't need a cold air or an open filter element. You see how muddy it is up under here, so I don't want like a cold air open filter element. And you know, it's a stock engine, so you know the factory airbox works great for stock engines on those things. I haven't ever seen one of those cold air intakes ever actually give them any horsepower to speak of. They sound cool when you nail it, you know, get that bog sound, woo, you know, whatever, but they don't actually give any power. I haven't ever seen them give enough power to make a piss pot of difference. But so anyway, I'm gonna leave that one there. We're gonna put the factory box, we're gonna put another battery tray over here. I'll show you how to chop that up. I'm going to remove this air horn. It probably doesn't work anyway. I've never messed with it. Maybe it works. I don't know. I don't care. It's stupid. I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need this canister anymore. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. I'll show you guys what I'm going to do as far as capping off these hoses that go to, we don't cap them completely off. We got to let it vent. So this will vent the fuel lines, fuel tanks. So we do want to let that vent, but we'll put that vent up here and out of the way, and it'll look all clean. We are going to use a factory style radiator in it. It's just a aftermarket cheapie. I got it from Rock Auto, I believe. Yeah, I know I did. Got it from Rock Auto. It's a plastic aluminum combination, you know, aluminum with plastic tanks. They work great. It'll cool that 5.3 very well. I believe the fan shroud, well, I know the fan shroud will fit the radiator. I believe the fan shroud will fit the fan on the 5.3. If that don't work, I have a backup plan with electric fans, so not a big deal. The harness I have does not have electric fans wired into it, but there again, not a big deal. I know how to wire that in. So if I get to that point and have to do that, so be it. So anyway, let's get started. We're going to put the engine lift plate on. Motor mounts are loose. So we're going to pull the harness, lay it over on the engine, put the engine lift plate, pull the shroud, get this sucker ready to yank out, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, so I've already loosened the bolt in the center. You can see that the head of the bolt. Let's see, right there. I already loosened the head of the bolt. So we'll unplug it just like that. And then let's see if I can do this with one hand. We will pop this one out. Just like that. So there's the rear lights. Tuck it back. Kind of hard to tuck it back with one hand. All right. Loosen it up. All right. Now we'll take. Let's see. We'll take this side off. We'll loosen it with one hand. Bam. Pop that off. Headlight harness. Set that over here out of the way. And now we got the engine harness. Looks like something is. Let's see. Get this back where we can see it. Okay, so we got the engine and wiper motor harness. Look like something chewed this wire here, so I'm gonna have to repair that. But now we'll just unplug these 3 wires, route it under the booster, and undo the little clamps that are holding it up there, lay it on top of the engine, and we should be ready to go. So one more thing I've decided to do also before I pull this engine, I'm going to go ahead and remove the fan. I think there's enough room to clear it now that the radiator and shroud and everything's out of the way, but I don't want to take a chance, get it, you know, partial way up and that fan don't clear. I've done engine swaps in these trucks before, and I've never had success leaving the fan on, so I'm pretty sure this one will get caught up too. There's no sense in messing with it. Let's just yank it off. Okay, phone died last night, so I didn't get to some of the videos of the rest of the job, but I didn't want to stop, so we went ahead and took the engine out. It's laying over there somewhere on the ground. Got the engine out. Austin's working on pulling the old ECU out from under the dash. We're going to pull this harness right here out, and then he's going to change the throttle cable for us. Got it pressure washed, clean enough for an old 4-wheel drive that we're just going to go and mud some more in. So the engine's almost painted, and we'll continue on. Motor mounts are painted, so we'll continue on. All right, sorry about all the background noise. We're right here by the highway. Traffic's pretty loud, but anyway, there's the engines going in the little K5 or K10 Silverado. It's all painted, cleaned, ready to go. That paint in the camera looks blue, but it's actually purple. It's duplicolor. We did it in a duplicolor metal cast purple. Anyway, so it's ready to go. This is a 2005 Tahoe 5.3 bone stock. I like the 03 and newer, usually 04 and newer engines better. They got dimple rods, floating wrist pins that make a slight bit more horsepower, and they just tend to run better. They don't have any bearing issues or anything like that. And anyway, this thing is ready to go, other than the oil pressure sender thing back there. I got to change it. Got some other parts painted ready to go on it, so we'll get this thing stuck in there here in a minute and see how everything fits. The motor mounts are really intended to set the engine forward an inch in the chassis, so I'm not sure. I really don't think they're going to work. I think I'm going to have to move the motor mounts on the frame, but it won't take us but a minute to stab this just to check it, see, and if we got to move them, we'll yank it back out, move them. So when you're adapting these newer engines into the older vehicles with older GM transmissions, the easiest way to do this is order the flex plate and the little snout adapter, and it bolts right in. There are other ways to do it, but this is the easiest way. This is also, you know, $100 bill. So, you know, there are cheaper ways to do it, but this is the quickest, simplest way. This bolts up every time. You don't have to mess with it. It's done. Okay, as I thought, those motor mounts aren't going to work very well, so we're going to have to move the motor mounts themselves back. And I'll probably have to make a gusset for the back side of this. I've already kind of got it planned out in my head how I'm going to do it. Other than that, she's in there. She's already made it up to the transmission, so we know that's where it's going to sit. It's pretty far back, but it'll work great. Don't have to change the drive shafts or anything. Looks like it's going to work. Okay, so we got it mounted in. Funny how that looks blue in the camera and not purple. Huh, that's weird. Anyway, they got it mounted in. I still have to make a brace here. I think I've already got that planned out. Got the converter bolts in, got the bell housing bolts in, all that's tightened up. I started on the exhaust. Gonna run 2.5-inch stainless to the back. Gonna put the Flowmaster knockoffs with the turn down. So that's about where we're at. Not really a whole lot of cool updates. Get the motor mounts done. I'll show you those here in a minute. But so far so good. One thing I did not mention is what motor mount adapter we're using. This is a Tejas steel motor mount adapter, and their website says that they will not work with a four-wheel drive. I can see why. They do not without modification. And really the only thing I don't like about it is you can see there's nowhere to put the stock LS AC compressor bracket. We had it mounted on there, but it hit the cross member in let's see, in that area right there. So not gonna work. Not a big deal. I think I still have one of those ICT billet AC compressor brackets in there in the office. That's probably what we'll use on this one. Right now AC isn't a priority. Air conditioning, it's almost winter, so not really. I mean, hell, it's almost December, so I'm not really going to worry about it right now. Anyway, right now I'm working on exhaust. Get the harness in, put the starter on. It's easier to put the harness on that crankshaft sensor before we put the starter on. So we're going to do that. But yeah, anyway, that's where we're at. Let's continue on. Okay, don't make fun of my welds. They're kind of crappy looking, but it was hard to get in there and I didn't clean that very well. But what I did was just took a piece of 2-inch square tubing. It's about 3/16 thick. I forget what the gauge is, like 11 gauge maybe or something like that. Anyway, cut it about 1.5 inches long or 2 inches long. Then cut it in half diagonally. Made me some gussets. Same with the other side. The other side's harder to see, but weld actually looks better on that. It still looks like crap, but it'll hold just fine. And so there's the motor mount issue. That ought to work plenty good. It's not a super high horsepower engine, a bunch of torque, but it is a lot more torque than the factory did, so gotta make something to brace it up. Now to move on to finishing the exhaust, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I got all the exhaust done last night. Today is day 3, Wednesday. Got that done last night. I was here to about 6:30 or 7, something like that. Wasn't real late. I did want to finish it all up, hangers and everything. I'll get a video of that here after a while. I don't feel like lifting the truck right now to do that. So the goal today is to have it completely buttoned up to where I can start on the harness and possibly fire it up today. I kind of doubt it. It's probably going to be tomorrow before I can fire it up. But we're on day 3 of our LS swap in our K10 Silverado. And it's going pretty fast, pretty smooth. Yesterday I ran into a bunch of little things that kind of took up more time. And I thought I'd be farther along yesterday, but yep, that's how these jobs go. You know, you think everything's gonna run smooth, and it don't always. So it is what it is. But still got some stuff to remove off the firewall that I'm not going to use. Well, really just that, I believe. I think everything else is gone. And clean up some stuff and start putting everything back together. I'm going to rob the oil pressure sender and the temperature sender out of the old 305. They were working. They were still in good shape. Or, well, I assume they were working. The gauges didn't work, but they were probably still working. The sensors usually don't go bad. It's usually something else. So we'll try those first. If not, I'll get some new sensors for it. Got to still put the coils on. Let's see. Coils, plugs, wires, oil, antifreeze, power steering fluid. I've got the pump, the pressure hose changed over, but I haven't got the hose that was on it leaked pretty good, so we're going to get some new hose for that. Got the lower radiator hose on, And that's about it for now. So we'll just keep moving on, and I'll keep you posted as we go. Okay, I have a new eBay harness or Amazon harness that I was going to use on the K10, but it's kind of a POS. It needs too much modification to make it work. So we are going to rework a factory harness. I'm not going to do a complete rework on it. We're just mostly just going to cut out the stuff we don't need, wire in the stuff we do need. What Austin's doing right now is labeling the wires as he cuts them. That way we know where they go. And then we're going to use this little cheapo eBay fuse box. These work pretty good. I've used them before. And they're only about 50 or 60 bucks. And it just saves so much more time. We can do it with, we can make our own relays and fuse box and all like most people are doing. It's a lot cheaper. You might have about 20 bucks in it doing it that way, but it's also a lot more time consuming. And this is already pre-wired. All you gotta do is hook it up. So that's the way we're gonna do it this time. And we're gonna get to it. Okay, I got the factory Silverado harness cut up. There's not really much to cut off of it. We don't need this. That's for that oil pressure switch that goes down to the bottom of the block. And we don't need the alternator wire. The rest of it we're going to reuse. So we're going to keep all this. This is our temperature, starter, alternator, and battery positive, ignition, and oil pressure. So we're going to use all of these. I'm not 100% sure what these two are. I'll have to research it. And then this pink one here, I'm not 100% sure what it is. It was chewed up already by rats. I'm pretty sure this is a fuel level sender, but I don't know for a fact. And we'll go from there. All right, got the exhaust done. It's all stainless except for the mufflers. The mufflers are, Flowmaster knockoffs. It's stainless all the way up to the manifold. And it's a 2.5 inch. Give me a little piece of wire there. But I made my own little turn downs. I think they look kind of cool. And kind of got them turned down and out a little bit. Got to finish taking all the wire and the old tailpipe, junky tailpipe and bracket, all that off of there. Yeah, but other than that, it's done. Okay, today is day 4, beginning of day 4. I was here till about 8 o'clock last night. Got most of everything done. I don't know if I showed you guys, the exhaust is done. And fuel system is done. Most of the wiring is done. We'll get back to the wiring here in a little bit. I'll show it to you. But that's about where we're at. I forgot to download all my files off my phone, so I wasn't able to take any more videos yesterday. But anyway, we'll update you here in a minute on everything else that's going on. And let's get back to that. Okay, test fire number 1. See if it fires. Think everything's hooked up, but we're fixing to find out. It looks like the negative battery cable bolt is kind of stripped, so I'm not sure it's going to work. I'm going to have to change the bolts out, but maybe it'll be enough to fire this thing up. All right, we got power in the cab. Nope. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to change that bolt before we can go any further. Okay, attempt number 2. I don't hear the fuel pump. I'm hoping that's just because it's quiet. Nah, don't sound like we're getting fuel. Okay, so our fuse block was missing a couple of fuses out of it. So I think that's all that we got going on. So attempt number 3. I still don't hear the relays or anything. So we had to diagnose a few things and mess with it here and there and find what it was. Is the PCM wasn't activating the fuel pump relay, so it wouldn't start. We got that figured out and got it to fire up, so we didn't get that on video, but we'll go ahead and fire it up now. It's doing that again. It don't like that vacuum leak at all. Now let's kill it. So back where we are. It is a running, driving, LS swapped Squarebody. We are on day 4. We're on day 4, a little past midday. I have somewhere between 32 and 36 hours in this. I kind of lost track. There are a few things left to do on the LS swap part of it. I've got to clean up the wiring here and run my I only need 3 wires running in the cab. I got the OBD2 connector, the, what do you call it, the malfunction indicator light or check engine light, and the brake switch. Got those 3 wires I got to run in the cab. I've got to make a mount for the PCM. Got to mount the airbox over there, and that's pretty much it. The fan is not going to work too well. It'll be okay for right now because it's not going to be hot anytime soon, so that's fine, but it sticks too far out of the shroud, so we're going to go ahead and put electric fans on it later, but for right now it's okay. That really isn't going to be a problem until summertime or spring. And I had one problem with it, well, 2 problems with it. There is a fuel leak on the return line to the tank, from the metal lines to the tank. I didn't change those, so you got to drop the tank to do it. Well, it leaks, so looks like we'll be dropping the tank. And then over here, you can see on my floor drive, transmission line has a pinhole. Well, you can't really see it, but anyway, transmission line has a pinhole in it, so I'm going to have to repair that. Other than that, it is a running, driving C10 or K10 in 4 days. Running, driving, LS swapped K10 in 4 days. All right, we're at the end of day 4. It's running, driving, got the power steering leak fixed, got the transmission leak fixed. Oh yeah, there was a power steering leak as well. Got both of those fixed. It had an air pocket in the coolant system. It burped and puked fluid everywhere. So I got that pretty much squared away, I believe. And so tomorrow, all I have left to do is paint the engine covers, drop the tank, fix the fuel leak, and mount the PCM and clean up the wiring harness. And that's it. It's got great oil pressure, temperature's working. Those gauges weren't working before. I've got all that repaired. Oh, and I also have to run the 3 wires in the cab and hook them up. The brake switch, OBD2 connector, and the check engine light. And other than that, she is pretty much done and ready to go. So, running and driving in 4 days, but I don't really call it complete until everything's complete. So, it will be a 5-day LS swap. All right, we'll keep you posted. Thank you. Okay, we're on day 5, about 4 o'clock, Friday afternoon. It is complete, running, ready to go. We used a factory 99-06 pickup PCM mount mounted to the bottom of the battery like they are normally in those pickups. Work pretty good in the Squarebody. We also use the 9906 factory air box and the tray, and just mounted it to the old battery tray in the Squarebody. Everything fits. It should be ready to start. Austin, you want to go ahead and start it? Okay, take a little while to start, but need to run that old gas out of it. All right. Okay, so we're going to try to pull it out, take it for a drive, see how it goes. First try round the block. Transmission shifting good. Engine's running decent. I think we got an injector sticking. Sounds like it's kind of got a little slight mist to it. And it's running a little rich. I can tell by the way it smells. But other than that, success. So, it runs pretty good. I believe it's got some leaking injectors. They're probably over fueling, because it's hard to start and it'll even backfire and pop out the exhaust every now and then. Sometimes it starts right away and sometimes it doesn't. Right now it's running fair, but it has to have a slight miss to it. It's even idling a little bit high. Let's see, we'll kill it. Now let's try to start it again. Oh, battery's dead. Yeah, and we're going to have to put a new battery on it. But other than that, it's running pretty good. We're going to go ahead and end the video there. It is complete running and driving, so I call that success. There's other things that need to be done to it, so we're not going to worry about it right at the moment. I'm going to put a battery on it, and probably going to start a new video series on the repair on other stuff, like the heater core needs to be changed. We'll change that. I have a whole nother set of fuel injectors and all that, so I'll probably just change them, instead of trying to figure out what's going on there. I'll probably just swap them out. And the intake, it doesn't have a provision to mount the engine cover, so I think it's off of a van, and the vans don't have engine covers, so I believe I'm probably just going to change the whole dang intake manifold with injectors and everything to one I've got sitting at the shop. Just make it quicker and simpler, and then I can mount the engine cover. And okay, to cap it up, I did paint the engine covers, and I did go ahead and change the fuel injectors. It runs a lot better. Still has a slight miss to it, but I think that's because I need to change the plugs and I just didn't have time to mess with it right now. But it runs extremely well. I also did another little deal for my wife. Hang on just a second. So Diana is 5'2", and it's a little hard for her to reach the gas pedal. So I made a 2-inch pedal extension, bring the pedal out 2 inches. Now it's pretty much flush with the brake pedal, and she can reach it and drive it just fine now. This is Johnny coming at you from Backyard Hot Rods. If you like the content, like and subscribe. Maybe share it with your buddies. As always, we thank you for watching. You have a good day.